All right, new or resale. So let's talk about how to make money with a franchise as a franchisee. So you can either buy new or you can buy a resale, meaning an already existing franchise that's up and running. So buying a resale. So you can buy either a profitable resale or what's called a turnaround opportunity. Typically, a turnaround opportunity is when the business is either breaking even or losing money. And with a resale, you can put only, if the business is profitable, you can put only 10% down, assuming you are qualified with SBA financing, Small Business Administration. And we'll talk about funding and how to finance them later on in other modules. Now, something important to point out here is that you can only finance a franchise resale that's profitable. If the business is losing money, you will not be able to get an SBA loan on that. You'd have to buy it cash or use any sort of other funding methods, again, that we'll talk about later on. Why would you buy a turnaround opportunity? Well, sometimes there are just owners that are not good at running businesses, or they're being lazy, or they're not running the business properly. There's many different reasons, but there's many cases of people buying turnaround opportunities or businesses that weren't doing well and then going in and turning them around. And so the distinction to make when buying a resale and what to figure out is, hey, is this like a bad location, or is this a falling knife, right? Falling knife is in the world of the stock market, where a stock is going down. Someone goes, oh, that's a buying opportunity. I'm going to buy it since it's now lowering in price. But, well, if it's something like an Enron back in the day, you'd be catching a falling knife, meaning you're catching something that's never going to come back and return again. And so that's what you need to figure out if you're looking at a turnaround opportunity in terms of a resale. Now, you can get seller financing with a resale for a percentage, or for a small percentage or a high percentage, maybe even get 100% seller finance. That's definitely going to be the rarity, getting 100% seller finance, but it's a cool part of buying a resale is seller financing. Most of the people that we've helped in our zero profitable franchise system that have bought resales, many of them have negotiated a small percentage at least of seller financing. And so actually, in the instance, SBA has a new rule where if you're able to get seller financing, and let's say you get 10 or 20% of seller financing, you may be able to buy the business with no money down at all. That the seller financing acts as the down payment in the eyes of the SBA. Again, there's going to be if you're well qualified and all sorts of other things, but it's an interesting way to do it. Now, you could have a turnkey operation, right, with marketing and a staff already in place. So those are some of the functions of a resale. Now, made it sound really good, right? Wow, yeah, who wouldn't want to buy a resale? An already up and running business, doing sales, making money. What are the cons to buying a resale? Well, that's a good question. So it could be very hard to turn around a business, and it may not work if you're buying a turnaround resale. Again, the whole catching a falling knife. You may have to pay a premium for a resale that's already profitable. So maybe opening up from scratch, as an example, would take, let's say, $250,000 all in. But because of the amount of money that the resale is making, maybe it costs $800,000 for that specific resale because of the amount of money that it's generating. So it can be significantly more expensive, and it might be completely beyond what you feel comfortable with from a risk standpoint. The team and the staff may need to be replaced. So if you're buying a business and it's not performing well, we bought a resale as our second location. And what I learned was the staff was doing whatever the hell they wanted. Sitting on the counters, wearing hats backwards. They were doing all sorts of things. It was a very bad culture in that business, which was completely different from what I was accustomed to in the store that I opened from scratch. I established the culture from the beginning. So we were like a smooth, again, well-oiled machine, and well, the resale was not. And so that can be very challenging. It took months and months and months and months because I'd never acquired a turnaround before. I didn't know how to completely reset the culture. And so that was something that cost me a lot of money and mistakes in the short term trying to really figure out. And with a resale, you cannot pick your location or territory. You get what you buy. I mean, it's already there in a specific location, or there is already a territory the business is operating out of. So if you're going to buy that business, you need to operate it where it is. And then you're also inheriting the terms, contracts, or leases that the previous owner had in place. So when we bought our resale, we bought a location that the square footage of the store was bigger than it needed to be. So every month we were overpaying in rent because the location was 1,400 square feet and we really only needed around 1,100. So we were overpaying about $1,000 a month in rent because, well, the business was already there and operating. To try to rebuild a different store in a different location would have been like opening a new store, wouldn't have made sense. So we also took over the existing lease that had already been negotiated by the original buyer. So with buying a resale, again, you're inheriting all these aspects of the business that they may not have been good decisions and they may not be favorable terms. They may not be favorable employees. And so you could be inheriting a nightmare. The other part about resales, the con, is that there's limited inventory available. So there's only a certain amount of businesses that are for sale. There may not be any options or anything for sale in your area that meets your criteria or that you want or that you are interested in, etc. So if you wait to buy resale, you may be waiting for, well, forever. So that's one of the cons of buying resales. These are just a few case studies of some clients that we've helped through our Zero to Profitable franchise system, which is our flagship system and program of helping people find, vet, buy, and get a franchise profitable. We keep working with them until they do. And so I'm not going to reveal their real names here, but on our website, we have like over 25, I think maybe 30 video testimonials now. So you can always go watch those and probably figure out who they are. But in this instance, he was an engineer and he bought a franchise that was doing about 1.37 in sales, and the business was doing about $325,000 a year in profit and only had a $500,000 asking price. Yes, the business was really a great value is what it turned out to be. When he went through the SBA process, the SBA lender actually valued the business at $1 million. So he basically got the business for half price. It was a retail location, so he had to get approved by the landlord. And the other thing is when you buy a resale, the franchisor still has to approve you. You can't just go to the owner of the franchise and say, hey, I want to buy it. And they say, yes. That is, yes, step one, but the franchisor has to approve you as well. And if it's a retail location, the landlord has to approve you for the location, to take over the location and the lease. In this case, the owner was retiring. They owned 4 locations and they were selling them off one by one. And so he was able to only put 10% down and he financed the remaining $450,000. SBA monthly payments of about $6,000 a month, and that would leave about $250,000 in profit after his SBA loan payments. And he was able to completely replace his income as an engineer, and after 6 months is only working about 20 hours a week in the business. The business already had a manager. It had a whole team of people in place. Scenario number 2, client David, an experienced entrepreneur. So he bought a franchise that was not doing very well. It's a turnaround opportunity. It was really, I would say, losing money. It was kind of pitched as break even, but it was losing money. And it had $150,000 in sales. Now, this was a service-based franchise, so no retail location, no lease. So we'll just call it an even $0 in profit, even though it was really trending downwards. The asking price was $100,000. He got it down to $72,000 and he paid cash. Again, it was a service business, no brick and mortar and low overhead. The owner was retiring and the owner ran the business as a one-man show. These are usually representative of opportunities in turnarounds. Look, franchise businesses are, generally speaking, typically meant to be scalable businesses. And sometimes people run them in a manner that they're not actually being run as a business. You're really running them as someone who's self-employed. And so sometimes if you see resale opportunities that are underperforming and it's pretty much the owner running the business, it's typically showing you that the business is not running to its full potential. A business that's running to its full potential, you're going to have a team in place. You're going to have staff in place. The owner is going to be in a role where they are leading the team, not stuck in the day-to-day of the business. Again, he paid cash, and what happened was, because he was an experienced entrepreneur, he was able to hit the ground running. Probably if you have never owned a business before, you probably would not have been able to hit the ground running like he did. But he doubled, and he pulled some of his staff from his existing business. So he had a team that he was able to plug into the business to help make sure it got turned around quickly. So he doubled the business in 90 days, and he made back his entire investment in profit in 6 months. It was really an amazing feat. Our next client, he worked in warehouse logistics, and he bought a business doing $500,000 in sales, about $75,000 in profit. It had a $250,000 asking price, and it was a service and transportation business with very large equipment. The owners were a father and son, and the son was leaving at 3 o'clock every day and pretty much just coasting in the business. And he was bored and wanted to do another business. So the business was profitable, but it was a sign that the business had opportunity, right? Someone's leaving at 3 o'clock every day. Well, there's opportunity there. So what he did was he put 5% down. He seller financed 5%, and then the remaining $225,000 he financed through an SBA loan. And so SBA loan payments of $6,000 a month is not accurate. That is a typo. So again, part of the beta program, and we will adjust that. But $50,000 in profits after his SBA loan, projected to do $150,000 after year one of ownership. Whoops. All right. So he wound up completely replacing his income in warehouse logistics, and now owns a business that had another territory that was completely untapped by the previous owner. They hadn't even started marketing in that territory. So a tremendous amount of upside potential. And the average unit volume disclosed in the FDD, which we'll get into what all those things mean later on in the course, was $1 million was the average unit volume. So this particular location was underperforming. And so it just showed that there was a lot of opportunity. So let's talk new franchises. They're generally speaking either service or retail-based franchises. We'll talk more about that and the differences in the next module. But with a brand new franchise, it's like building a house from scratch in a brand new neighborhood. You get to pick your territory, right? It'll likely, and so it's the analogy is like picking a lot when building a home. It'll likely take longer to get up and running, but you get to design and build it the way that you want. Now, the lot you want may not be available. So if it isn't, either you buy a different lot or you look at another neighborhood. Now, buying new versus resale impacts a lot. It impacts territory selection, right? If you buy new, you can choose your territory. Resale, you can't choose. How you fund it and how much you need as an equity injection. Again, we'll talk more about funding later on. It will affect your hiring strategy, your ramp time or time to profitability. And essentially with buying a new franchise, you are starting with a blank canvas. There are over 4,000 franchise brands, so you get to pick the one that is truly the best fit out of the 4,000 that are out there. Now, you're not just picking it because it's one of the few options available, like a resale. Almost every industry and business you can imagine has franchises. These are some of the high-level industries: automotive, business services, children's products and services, cleaning and maintenance. You can see all of the different examples here. If you want, you can pause the screen and take a look at them. But there's so many other industries, and if you're buying a resale, you're limited to what you're looking at. If you buy new, you can take a look at every industry that you can imagine. And this is just an example of some of the different industries that exist and, what your options would be when looking at new franchises. And you can see the breakdown of the numbers in just the Franchise 500, which is, well, let me not go into that, but some of those rankings are a little bit biased and not representative of what actually makes franchisees the most money, just basically what franchise systems are the largest. But you can see all the different categories. You got quick service restaurants, which are your Starbucks, Paneras, etc. Maintenance, personal care, children's businesses, retail, hotels and motels, automotive, pet care, recreation, so on and so forth. So really the biggest benefit to going new is getting to choose to do it exactly how you want. You choose the business you want, you choose your territory and where you open, and you get to get it up and running the way that you want. Now, with starting something from scratch, there is risk. Part of the risk comes down to two things: the franchise you choose and you as an individual. So let's talk about how do you avoid choosing the wrong franchise and making sure that you choose the right one. I'll see you in the next one.